Welcome back to the Bleeding Hearts Club, where we alchemize pain into something beautiful together. I'm your co-host, Shroot. I'm an astrologer who uses astrology as a self-reflective tool for healing and growth, and this is my co-host.
Hi, y'all. My name is Stevie. I am a tarot reader, Reiki practitioner, mental health professional. Yeah,
I love it.
pal.
And this is our last episode of the year. We are Libras, so we are sorry that we are not. We're sorry that we're taking a break. We're sorry that we're like resting. We're sorry that we're like taking care of ourselves. It's not something that we are like excited to do per se. I think we love chatting with y'all. We love being in community with y'all through this podcast. So I had to put the hammer down a little bit and be like, we're on timeout. So it is not necessarily by choice, but it is by necessity, and it is by us practicing what we preach. And so today's episode, we are going to focus on a horoscope. We are going on break. And we will be back in January 20th, 21st, the Tuesday around then. So we want to make sure that we give you a nice, hefty tarot astrology horoscope to tide you over until then. And so before we get started with the horoscope, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a reflection on the year because this has been a big year for us. It is our second year of our Saturn return. So it's kind of, getting really real for us. We're in the throes of it. We are, clear on what the themes are for each of us, and we have been wrestling with it for about quite some time now. And so it's a great place to check in. So and then, we're also going to offer you some questions for you to reflect on your year as well. So I guess I'll start. I This year's been such a roller coaster internally for me. It's not necessarily been anything that has been too wild externally. But I think I have really come into my own now after, a lifetime of trauma, a lifetime of abuse, escaping my abusive situation in 2020 and really like struggling to kind of be myself and express myself and just like reconnect with and like reform my relationship with myself on my own terms. For the last 5 years, it's been really difficult for me. And I feel like this was the year I kind of turned a corner on all of that. Where pretty much my whole life I've just been living with really severe like fear. And I've been having a very disconnected relationship to my emotions. And I think it was always easier for me to express them to other people, but not necessarily to hold them within myself and to be present with them myself. I always kind of needed somebody else to like babysit me through that. And I think this year I really focused on cultivating the skill sets and the toolkits that I needed to be there for myself and to be present with my emotions and to really just hold all parts of myself and connect with myself. So I feel like that was definitely the biggest thing that I kind of got out of this year was a level of comfort being with myself that I had never had before, which is, I don't know, I feel like I'm in my head minimizing it. It feels like not a big deal. But I hadn't have that before. So it actually in reality is a very big deal and I'm really proud of myself. And I think in a lot of ways this year was a big like proof of concept year for myself where I have really big dreams about where I want to take shrew trees, where I want to take my astrology practice, what I want to do other than my astrology practice. And I think I laid some really good foundation. I planted some really good seeds. Um, to step in the direction of making those dreams possible. And so I kind of call this my proof of concept year, where I got a lot of um proof that these concepts, these dreams that I have, I have more than concepts of a plan. I have actual seeds in the ground now, and I have proof that they're sprouting. And so that's been really exciting. One of those things has been I have contracted out somebody who helps us post on social media our podcast clips. So if you ever have appreciation for our lovely contractor, go ahead and send them our way. I would love to pass it on to him. And we really appreciate his work, but I've also gotten really good feedback from him about me as like somebody managing this project and managing somebody on this project. So it's kind of this year has like forced me because of my own desires for expansion. This year has kind of forced me out of my comfort zone of just like building, my business and all my projects in like a little cave in my room, alone, and it's forced me into, me and Stevie have started this joint venture together, and now I've brought in a contractor to help us. So, I've kind of been managing the project and I've been leading it and I've been holding all of that. And it's been a blast. And it's been, it was really difficult to build everything and figure it all out. But once I did, like, it's going really well. So I'm really grateful for that. I think it's been just a really gratifying year where I feel like all of my hard work, all of my self-reflection, all of my stuff that I say, all of the advice that I give, it's like I've taken it myself and it worked for me and it continues to work for me in different phases of my life. And I just got a lot of proof of that this year. So that's my year reflection. What about you, Stevie?
I love that so much. And I'm so proud of you. And I feel very lucky that I was there to witness some parts of it.
I
Yay.
appreciate it. I could not have done it without you.
Same.
Yeah.
This year was a doozy for me. I don't remember so much of it. It went by so fast. Um, I get okay, like I'm trying to like put things into context right now, but last year, was that last year? Last year was 2023. That's crazy.
It'll be 2 years
Last
ago very soon.
Ugh. Yeah, last year I was really I was really burning out. I was really, 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 really burning out. I was working um long hours at a government job, which like the job itself was cool. It was just my neurodivergence and grief and like burnout that made it really unsustainable for me. And I went, I left. Like I left my, cushy macro social work government job, um, and really took a chance by going into part-time contract work at a nonprofit that I really like I'm still at and I love so much. And it like brought me into the death work space in a way that I didn't have to do like direct one-on-one care, which I didn't have the capacity for, but I really desperately wanted to be in this industry. And it gave me an opportunity to do that. But like my job and the nonprofit themselves are just really intentional about not overworking yourself and giving you the time and space to be a human, encouraging you to build sustainable structures of support for yourself and to like call on each other, and to take time for yourself if ever and whenever you need to. And that's just been really healing and set a lot of important groundwork for this year. Um, this year, I took on a lot of leadership roles. I built out like this program that I manage, and like I really, I know someone from this program is going to be listening to this, at least one person, and like I was really scared shitless, like I could because it was me, like I was the main person who was building out this program and like you know communicating things and holding space. And I really get uncomfortable with being in a leadership role, which is definitely my Libra, but my Leo Mars is very much like, no, you have to be running things. Um, and this really pushed me to do that and to be more comfortable with that and to be more comfortable with being perceived by others, like without and like allowing myself to be human in the process, like not this robot, not this like inaccessible like being that's overseeing things. Like it really allowed me to practice vulnerability in order to create and sustain the relationships that carried on through this past year. So that itself has been really transformative. I love my job. I love what I do. Um, and at some point, early in this year, like January, I decided to put in my registration application to be an associate like clinical social worker to get my hours towards licensure to become a licensed therapist. So right now I'm like gaining hours. I'm someone's therapist. I'm a few people's therapist, honestly. Um, and again, it's just another thing that like I'm in this leadership role, holding space for other people. And, I'm not a leader, but like I'm someone who's opening up a container and holding the space for somebody. Um, and it's really vulnerable and scary and rewarding and amazing and transformative. And I just feel like I did my best to step into discomfort and allow myself to do things that are scary as hell, but I've been able to like reap the rewards of it and grow so much and get more comfortable with it. And it's been really, really cool. And I also like started doing my events. Like I, with the support of my friend back in September, like did a grief sound bath. Um, I was like invited to do tarot readings at a community college for I think it was like LGBTQ History Month back in October. Shout out to my pal Caleb for the invitation. And I did a sound bath at a grief resource fair last month. And I'm gonna do another no, not resource, holiday grief sound bath this month. If you are in or around Long Beach, it's on December 21st. No, December 20th. um, at 6 o'clock, and we'll link all of this stuff to it. But yeah, I have really pushed myself to put myself out there. And also, I agreed to this damn podcast where everybody sees me. Sometimes the client sees me on TikTok and it's really weird. But yeah, it's been so cool. And I'm really appreciative, yeah, of it. So thank you, Shroot, for always pushing me and always holding space for me. And what a wild ride. Mm-hmm.
Like huge. Like I'm trying very hard to stay very self-contained right now because like the me of 4 years ago, or even 5 years ago or I think it was 4 years ago when I first started with you. Um, wow. So much growth, like just so much growth. So I'm so proud of you and I'm so honored to be on this journey with you. And I'm just so grateful to be your friend. And it was beautiful to watch all of this bloom. When you said, I don't even really remember this year, I was like, I do. Don't worry. I got you. I'm holding all the memories. Because yeah, it was you really did so much. And I think you really bet on yourself this year in a way that you never have before. And so I just can't wait to see where you betting on yourself takes you because I know it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be so expansive. So, um, oh, I'm so proud of us. Yeah, this podcast was definitely like a little bit life-changing for both of us, I think, in different ways where like I'm not really a person who struggles with visibility, but I think my issue is more I've been disabled for 10 years and like there was a long stretch of this disability, maybe like 8 years of the 10 or even like 7 years of the 10 where I couldn't really commit to anything. I had to have like an escape hatch for every single commitment that I made, and there was no guarantee that I would get things done by the deadline of the commitment because my health was just so unpredictably bad. And this podcast has a deadline every 2 weeks. And we didn't miss one, knock on wood. We didn't miss a single one. And so, I feel like on my end it was like, you know, managing the podcast, from a producer standpoint, and also like managing the people who are helping make this podcast happen and doing all of that all the while like not missing any of these deadlines because of my health. Like it just like I'm in awe of the fact that I don't have to live in fear of reneging? I don't know how to say the word, but backing out of commitments. I don't have to live in fear of that anymore. And I think this podcast really showed me that. So, um, we are just so grateful to all the lessons we've learned from this podcast and all of the ways we've been able to be in community with you, listener. So we want to leave you with some questions so that you can do your own reflections. I do want to name, we stuck to a little bit more of like career oriented, a little bit of health oriented reflections in what we shared. But I think the reason that we did that was because these are important sectors of our life where we've experienced a lot of tremendous growth. And I think that it was really valuable for both of us to hold space for um we can't ever say the word holding space anymore and have it sound normal. I just get defying gravity stuck in my head now every time I say that. So I just wanted to name that as we're closing this year out. That's also happening. But anyway, um, it was really important to us to really honor these achievements that we've had. But I do want to name that there are so many other aspects of, your human existence, your human experience. You can look at all 12 houses of astrology to really like reflect on what those look like. And I'm sure that like you've had growth in all of those areas. We didn't want to sit here all day because we've had growth in all those areas as well. We've had ups and downs this year in all those areas. So I just want to give that disclaimer when we talk about these questions of reflection because I definitely encourage you to reflect on more than just your career and more than just, the big thing that happened in your life, and to also kind of like peek under the hood a little bit and really be present with all of the big and small ways your life has changed this year. So, you want to share some questions that you came up with, Stevie?
Yes, I love a good journal prompt
Yeah.
or reflection.
We're a
Um,
slut for some self-reflection. And we hope you
seriously.
are too.
I'm curious. These are things that we are just inviting you to think about. What did you learn about yourself this year? How did you surprise yourself this year? And what are you leaving behind in 2024?
You're leaving behind in 2024.
Me? That's a good question. A good question. Even though I came up with it.
You want me to go first? I put
Yeah.
you on the spot. I figured we didn't mention that. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. A little round out our little reflection. But yeah, I'm leaving behind like stopping at my fear. Like a lack of curiosity around my fear. Because I don't think it's realistic to say I'm leaving my fear behind. Like that's not happening. But I think this year has really taught me to be in the ring with my fear and to not leave the room with it. And to be curious. I've talked about it a lot in, my horoscopes lately, but because it's I think really the crowning achievement of this year for me, which is that like, what is around my fears, under my fears, beyond my fears, what else is there? And so I've decided to leave behind that lack of curiosity and that like ending the conversation at just, oh my God, I'm so scared right now. Like, I want to approach my fear with a lot more curiosity and presence and patience. And so I'm leaving behind the kind of resistance to doing that.
Wow. I think I am leaving behind old narratives of like victimhood. Like, oh, it's always going to be this way. I'm always going to be this way. All of these things, like these stories that I just kind of get swirled around in. Yeah, that kind of leave me feeling like there's nothing that I can do. Like I'm powerless or helpless and even hopeless. So I'm going to leave behind this feeling of powerlessness, of hopelessness, and call in empowerment and hopefulness because I can do something and I have done things.
You
And
changed your whole life this year. You
true.
can do it again when you need to.
That's true. And so can you, listener and Shroot and whatever
Oh.
ghosts are in the room with us.
Anybody's ancestors. Um, yeah, we all have room to change. I love it. Well, those are our reflections for the year. We encourage you to have some of your own. We encourage you to share them in. I encourage you to write in on the Instagram, bleedingheartsclub.pod. Um, and we would love to share them on our Instagram stories. And it's really important to us that, we're not just like talking heads that live in your car or, on your AirPods when you're doing your chores and stuff, that like, we are in community together. And so come join that community and come share your thoughts and be there to receive other people's thoughts. And so yeah, let us know what you're reflecting on. You can give us the answers to these questions or just whatever's coming up for you. We would love to know. So we just want to give you a little congrats. You made it another year. That's a big thing to celebrate. So yeah, you ready to get into the horoscope?
I sure am. I pulled cards from the Marigold Tarot deck. This is going to cover, since we're going on a break, December 10th through January 21st. So this big transitional period for us. The first one I pulled, these cards like flew out, by the way. Like I was having a hard time.
I'm not shocked, honestly.
Yeah. Once I got the message of them, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'll pull up the first one. It is 10 of Wands reversed. Gorgeous goose. Okay. So 10 of Wands, we are approaching winter solstice. That is on, I believe, December 21st.
Yes.
This is a season, a time for us to slow down, at least in the northern hemisphere. I honestly like, yeah, I've never thought about this. My like someone I know is going to Australia and she was saying that it's summer there. And I was like, right, how is this going to translate to people in South America or Australia? Because it's summer right now. So I'm curious if you are a listener from these places, let us know. Like, yeah, how what is this season for you? And how do you kind of spend the end of the year like this? I'm curious. I'm really, really curious. Um, but in at least California in the United States, or this hemisphere, it's starting to get colder. The days are getting shorter. We're it's soup season. Like we are encouraged to eat some warming foods, soup, fire cider, all of that good stuff. And are also being encouraged to like take care of ourselves because we're more susceptible to getting sick. During the winter, we're supposed to slow down, recharge, rest, and make time for deep reflection and, take inventory and decide what we're leaving behind this year to prepare for the next year. I wish we were hibernating. Like, I wish we could do that. Just take a really big rest. Like little bears. I imagine that the concept or the thought of slowing down may be hard for anybody who's really used to moving fast and being productive and having every single moment accounted for. Um, like me. But I feel like there's this like pressure to fix everything and get everything done before the year ends because there are all these goals that you have, all these things on your to-do list and creating, this, I don't know, it just feels like there's this big cloud of anxiety looming over you. And that is so real because, capitalism, it wants us to keep moving, keep being productive, keep spending money, all of those things. If you're listening to this podcast, you know where we stand on this. But overall, I think this card is calling you out and calling me out that we are just trying to do way too much and it's not sustainable. It's starting to weigh on us, weigh on you. And it's like you're hoarding all of this pressure, all of this shame. Like it feels like it's all on you. Like all of this responsibility is your responsibility. You do it, you got to get it done. You're not even thinking about delegating a task to another person or just foregoing the task altogether. It doesn't really seem like an option. Um, but it should be, and it can be if you let it. Um, yeah, you're not allowing anyone to help. And I don't really have any other words for this other than just naming you're doing the most. Some things don't have to get done. Some things can be left undone and forgotten and allow it to dissipate in 2024. But yeah, that is this. Heavy burdens, heavy pressures, a lot of weight, a lot of shame. True.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Ooh, yeah. This is like extremely just Sagittarius season. This is kind of what's on our docket in the middle of the Sagittarius season where we are finishing up Mercury retrograde. And we have just really gotten in the wings with Mars retrograde. So right now, both Mercury and Mars are retrograde. Mercury is going to retrograde until December 15th, and Mars stationed retrograde on December 6th. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, December 6th. And then it stations direct February 23rd. But our Mars retrograde story doesn't complete until June. So, um, having a Sagittarius season with both Mercury and Mars retrograde, it speaks to this idea that like we feel really hopped up on like, oh my God, let's do this. Like, especially because the Mercury retrograde is in Sagittarius, the Mars retrograde is in Leo, and then we have our last month of the North Node being in Aries, which means there is a triple fire activation. So we have all this like energy where we're like, oh, I gotta do this. I gotta get it done. I gotta, like we just feel so amped up, but we don't really have like a clear direction on what we're supposed to be doing. Like we know what we're supposed to be doing, but like it's not getting done. And we're like, what is happening? What are we doing? Like, and so I think like, through the month of December, as we phase out of Mercury retrograde and into the reflection phase, the solutions phase, of post Mercury retrograde, I think it's worth asking, like, really be honest with yourself about where you're actually at. Like this is a really important time to just be honest. What is really true for you right now? And, what are ways that like, you know, you are kind of pigeonholing yourself into whatever things that you feel like are right in front of you? And is there a way that you can broaden your perspective? And are there ways that you can take care of yourself and take care of your community that are new skills that you can learn, that aren't necessarily about the to-do list, but that in turn either make it easier for you to get your to-do list done or easier for you to clear the guilt and shame associated with not getting your to-do list done? So, what are some strategies that you can implement into your life that you haven't been doing before to take care of yourself a little bit better? So, the thing with the Mars retrograde, so as Mercury retrograde ends, we're at the tail end of it. That's going to kind of fade out in relevance. But Mars retrograde is something that's sticky. It's going to be persisting. So Mars is moving real slow, backwards, and or at least to our perception of our naked eye as human beings, it's backwards to us. It's not actually, retrogrades don't actually move backwards. It's just in terms of how they look to us as human beings, which I kind of personally love, but that's beside the point. So, you know, it's really important to like this period of time is less about getting all the things done on the to-do list and more about like building out your toolkit to support yourself in your ability to get things done. So one thing for me as an example is as a person who's been bedridden for like 10 years, like with my improved health outcomes, it's really important for me to start adding new activities onto my plate. Like I need to be exercising regularly again. I need to be eating more, just like, basic kind of like life stuff, taking care of myself type stuff, which lines up with where this transit's happening in my chart. And so, my to-do list is also not getting done. I'm not getting further on my goals the way that I would like to, but Is there a way that I can incorporate, exercising more every day? And so one thing I've been doing is I've been putting on a SoundCloud like mix. I love DJs. I have a lot of friends who are DJs, and I love putting on their mixes and just giving a little dance, a little dancey dance, like that counts as exercise. So I'm trying to see, okay, what are like low stakes, easy ways to kind of con myself into expanding, this capacity to care for myself. And so depending on where Mars is retrograding in your chart, so that would be where you have Cancer and Leo in your charts. What section of the chart that is, you can look up like what house you have them in and look up the themes for that house, or you could book a reading with us. You can find like, based on that, what themes you want to be expanding your toolkit when it comes to caring for yourself. And so it's really important for you to kind of hold a little bit of patience and self-compassion with yourself this month, because that like frenetic, chaotic energy of like, I gotta get this done, I gotta do it, and then matched with the I don't even know where to begin, like I don't even know where to start, like I'm so turned around. It's not going to be like this forever. And so the best thing you can do is just be honest with yourself right now about where you're at, and to kind of return, keep coming back to this idea of like, this is just the way things are right now. And, cultivate a level of acceptance for, things are maybe not going to your plan. But how can you take care of yourself in the face of that? And how can you take care of your community? So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Just, yeah. Every time I'm like, is this a reading for me?
I
Like,
know.
is this about me? Yeah.
Does this play about us?
Seriously. Dang. Yeah. You ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay. The next card is the Eight of
Oh,
Wands.
love her.
I know.
So gorgeous.
I'm like, I know these aren't lemons. There's
They sure
something
look
else
like it.
like a lemon. Maybe
It's
they
like a
are.
loquat or something.
Yeah. Something.
Type of
Something
fruity.
cute. Okay. Eight of Wands. This one's upright. Okay. I'm thinking about all this like triple fire situation happening. Because this card feels like that energy, just like SpongeBob in his brain running, everything's on fire, everything's moving so quickly. There's a panic. But it doesn't really have to like be a panic. It's just really frantic, fast energy. Which makes sense because we are entering the new year. And I just remembered what the new year means for us
Yeah.
in the United States. So there's a lot of unknown. There can be a sense of impending doom, all of those things. But I'm going to reel it back just to ourselves. You, me, our pals. Yeah, when the new year starts, everything just moves really quickly. I can't even believe how fast 2024 went by. Oh, that went. Um,
She's like, I
I
can believe it.
can. She was so present for all of it.
I know.
Yeah, and everything that just like came with 2024. Shroot and I, we shared our reflections, but there's so much that we just didn't have time to get into. Um, yeah, I feel like I didn't have time to process things, like everything that happened this year, because the next thing always kept coming. The other shoe just kept dropping. Um, yeah, but there's a lot of energy with this card, and it's very action oriented. Like it's kind of grounding this energy into like doing something with it and being more clear about what the hell you're supposed to do. Um, yeah, like you're very much leaving the bullshit behind of 2024 and ready to set your goals for the year ahead. And it's exciting and it's hopeful and it's motivating. And I think one of the questions that I have for y'all, and maybe even Shroot if you feel called to answer this, but like what intentions are you setting for 2025? I don't really like I shy away from setting resolutions because it just feels like a lot of pressure and expectation that comes with it. So yeah, I'm using intentions. What intentions are you setting for 2025? What kind of energy are you calling in and hoping to embody more this year? And I think when we're setting these intentions or even writing out manifestations, we have to be clear in envisioning them and stating them, writing them down, because it's not as helpful to be broad in general, at least for you. Like, what do these things look like? What actions come with it? What changes are you hoping to see? And yeah. We're planting seeds this year. This energy is to plant seeds. We're not going to see immediate changes. Maybe we will for some things, but probably not everything. And as you move through each day, you can ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do today that is going to align with these goals? If, I set the intention that I want to host 3 grief events, like maybe one day I can just start a new Canva template for the flyer and like not even add a text or anything, but just like open the template. That could just be one thing because it builds up over time, over the year. Okay. Yeah. Shroot, you can answer the questions if you would like, but
Yeah.
no pressure.
No, I love that you brought that up because I have plenty of thoughts around that as well. And that's actually one of the things that I learned this year. I think I've always known that, well, not always, but like I've known this, but it's something that I feel like I'm embodying now finally. Like it's really clicked for me where I think everybody's different. And, for some people, I think goal setting does work, and like resolutions do work. But I definitely don't think that applies to everybody. And I almost would argue, especially neurodivergent people, I don't think our brains just work in like a linear fashion like that. And so, like, we respond really well to circular time, which is why, if you're neurodivergent and you're listening to this podcast, you're into astrology, you're into tarot, like, of course, like, because astrology and tarot very much operate on like a circular time kind of basis. And so, I think for those of us who don't really resonate or who really struggle with feeling guilt and shame around setting linear timelines and goal setting and resolution setting and all that stuff, I agree that I think intention setting is like so powerful. And using like intentions as a way to call in certain feelings in our body and allowing those feelings and then in turn like recognition of those feelings in the future as a way to like steer ourselves through, like I call it the absurdity of existence. That's kind of like this is like a big theme of like what we cover in all of my new moon workshops because they are all about setting intentions for each new moon. And so I really think that there is so much like value in intentions being the thing that power you as opposed to resolutions. And so um I think that's actually one of my big intentions for the year is that like I'm done setting goals. Like I'm leaving. Actually, that's something I'm leaving behind in 2024 is because I have tried like, setting all these goals for myself and like I'll slip in some intentions because it's like I'm like in that transition of like leaving goals behind and moving only to intentions. So like they always kind of make it in there in my goal list. And then when I look back on them, it's like 100% of my intentions got met for the year, but 0% of my goals got met for the year. And that's just like a consistent theme that keeps happening. So it's like, okay, I get the hint. I'm not going to work on goals anymore. I'm going to only set intentions. And so I think that's like the biggest kind of way that I'm going to be approaching January. And again, I think that goes in with what I said in the last part about being honest with yourself of like, okay, goals don't work for me. Like they actually just give me a lot of shame and anxiety and like I don't actually get the goal accomplished. And also, a lot of times my goals are really short-sighted and really not reflective of my expansive reality. And that like I am meant for so much more than my little goal. Like, my life is about so much more, and I'm so much more of a vast and three-dimensional person than my little goals. So, I like the idea that intentions have the kind of roominess to encompass, that element. And so, I totally agree and encourage people to hold on to intentions. And so, for me personally, I have set an intention. My birthday's in October. As you know, if you haven't heard 100 times by now, we are Libras. So for me, it's kind of like my intention for my birth year lines up close enough with the intention for the next year as a whole. So I typically like come up with my intention by October, and then I'm like in the swing of like really calling it in by January. And so I do it based on, an astrology timing technique called perfection years, where the year that I am like turn like the year that I've turned, it's like, okay, in my 30th year now, in perfection years, that is my seventh house perfection year. And so, like essentially I started doing this 7 years ago, which is really exciting because I'm halfway through the chart with intentions. And so every year I come up with an intention that I set based on the themes of that house. So I take into account what sign the house is in, what planets the house has in it, any big transits that are happening in the sky through the course of that perfection year. So I'm an astrologer. I can take all those things into account. And I actually encourage, if you're interested in what that looks like for you, I offer a breakdown of all of that in really thorough detail for you in my Astrology for the Year Ahead reading. And so you can find that in link in our show notes to book a reading with me. But so I basically come up with an intention for myself every single year. And so my intention for my seventh house perfection year is that I really want to be like the source of stability in my life. And I really want to draw on myself as a resource. And that's a little bit difficult for me because I have Pisces as a sign straddling my first house and my second house. So it's like I'm an Aquarius rising, but Pisces is very much like a main player in my first house, but especially my second house. And so it's kind of like the idea of drawing on me as a resource. Like there is not too much boundary between me and like, oh Maya, me and Maya, me and the universe as a whole. Like so it's like when I say that I want to draw on myself as a resource, it's like I've had a lot of difficulty with codependency. I've had a lot of difficulty with not, like I said, like needing a babysitter to process my emotions. And so I basically want to be kind of like the authority, or I am, I should say, because with intentions, we always speak them in the present tense as if they're already happening. And we don't use words like I want to or I'll try. We use I am doing it. It's happening. So yeah, I am the kind of authority that facilitates, like I am the project manager of my own sense of stability and my own sense of resourcing myself, where I'm not looking to other people, like I'm looking to other people from a community standpoint. I draw on community support, but I'm the one who decides what that community support looks like. I'm the one who project manages, like needing it, you know, taking it in. Sorry, if you're listening, Maya is trying to steal the show. And it's adorable. So yeah, like I'm really wanting to look to myself first, and to kind of take cues and to take the lead, like the leadership. I want that to come from myself instead of looking to external sources for that. But I also understand that me, myself, is like a vast thing because of my interconnectedness with the world, and that's where the Pisces of it all comes in. So it's like, how do I take ownership of like me as the intermediary of my liaison with the universe? And I feel like I understand that that's really like meta and that doesn't make too much sense, but like that is a Pisces problem. So, yeah, I think, perfection years to me are a really powerful technique because I have tons of goals, and I have tons of intentions I want to call in, but I love the idea of spending a year just focusing on one thing because, it takes the pressure off of trying to get all these things done. And I feel like I learned so much about myself when I really just like examine one intention from all angles. So that's the one that I'm looking at. Um, and so I guess the way that we can tie this to astrology in terms of the horoscope is the we're starting this year off with a bang. On the third, the retrograding Mars in Leo is going to be opposite the freshly new Pluto in Aquarius. And we have been feeling this transit. We felt it a lot in November. So, it's this heavy feeling of like, our wounds coming up and us wanting to take action to either go head in, jump into the volcano and deal with them, or to run as far as we can, to avoid them, to escape from them. And so you can kind of expect whatever your coping strategies when it comes to having a wound unexpectedly come up, you can trust that in January you're going to reach for that. And so I think it's really important to, between now and January, really think about like, okay, like what coping strategies do I want to reach out to? Like what do it like if I have a choice here, because when we're reacting to something, we don't necessarily have a full toolkit of choices available to us. We have to build out that toolkit when we're not triggered so that when we are triggered, we can leverage it. So now, before we really feel the intensity of that Pluto transit, which we are feeling it to a certain degree, but before it's so heavy, um, what ways do you want to cope with your wounds? What are more sustainable strategies? So, like, in my case, it's like, okay, I don't want to just like rush to my friends and dump all over my friends, my issues, because that's my favorite thing to do. I'm really good at that. And it's like, instead, I want to just be present with my wounds instead. I want to be the first pass of like, I'm going to process these things for a little bit. I'm just going to be with them before I open my mouth and start sharing with my friends. Because my friends are still there. My community is still a really powerful resource for me. But like, I want to be the person at the helm of this table. And so that's like, for me, like, the intention that I'm walking into the new year with is like, okay, when my wounds come up, which I know they will, um, I'm going to create space for myself where I'm present for that. And so what I've done is I've created an altar in my room that is like dedicated with, full of, art and all types of things that are communicating support to me. And I'm going to basically, when these wounds come up and I'm feeling like the urge to escape, the urge to dump on my friends, the urge to kind of like not let my body and my consciousness be the vessel that holds these things, I'm going to sit in front of my altar and I'm going to give my altar all of those feelings, understanding that my altar is a reflection of me. And so that is me holding myself in my feelings. So it's like, okay, I have this like strategy planned. I've got the tools ready to go. It's ready for me when I need it. So I really encourage you to kind of set up something like that for yourself. It could be as simple as, okay, I've got a journal, I'm gonna write, or I have a notes app on my phone. Like when it comes up, I'm gonna write. I'm going to go for a run. Whatever it is, like just like try to think in your head ahead of time, like based on you and what works best for you and what's sustainable for you. What coping strategies can you choose to lean toward when your wounds come up? And especially wounds around ways in which you are not holding space for your heart-centered passions and your like honest expression of your emotions. So try to just be carving out some space to be open to all of that in January because, like CB said, it's going to be super busy. And so it's going to be difficult to navigate our feelings, our wounds, our overwhelm, in addition to all the things on our plate. So understanding that it's coming, okay, what can you do to carve out some time and space to make sure that you hold that kind of space for your wounds and your emotions, and the honesty that you need to cultivate with yourself because it is important. So that's kind of like the underbelly of what Stevie is saying. It's like all of that is going to be living there. And so it's really important to understand that like you do have the capacity to make room for all of it. And so I really encourage you to do that. Get organized when it comes to your material world tasks, as well as your self-care tasks, as well as your emotions and your wounds, because there is room for all of it. So that's what I would say.
Ah, organizing.
It's gonna be on the docket in Capricorn season for sure.
I believe it. If we didn't have a sauna, if I didn't have a sauna for like any of my jobs, I don't know where I'd be or
I
who I'd.
was losing my mind before you told me to get on Asana. I was like so overwhelmed navigating everything. Like it was, and even building out the Asana was so overwhelming. But
Yeah.
now it's like a lifesaver. Like we don't have to remember what's going on. Asana remembers what's going on. Like,
Mhm. And we set up that Asana.
yeah.
Yeah. If anybody has not heard of Asana, it's like a project management slash task organizer. And you can set up like a project and you can add tasks and then you can break those tasks down to subtasks and you can link things and set goals and deadlines. Honestly, it works for my flavor of neurodivergence because I can see it, I can adjust it, and when you complete a task, a little unicorn flies
Unicorn.
across the screen. So, if you think you would benefit from something like that, I would suggest Asana. We're
And
not
the free
sponsored.
capabilities are amazing. Like we don't pay for it for the podcast, and we pimp that
Right.
thing out. Like it is
Mhm,
decked out with everything we need. Like
mhm.
so.
Yeah. There are resources, pals. You don't have to do it all in your brain or create all the structures from scratch. Other people did the work for you. You just gotta find it. Okay. You ready for the last one?
Last card of the year. Let's do
Okay.
it.
I wish y'all could see Maya. She's like just out of frame, but she'll pop in. If you're watching this and you're seeing me like move and reconfigure, it's because I am trying to,
There she is.
yes, I'm trying to make sure that Maya is not showing whole on screen as she does during meetings and therapy sessions. And yeah, because she's,
Friend of the pod, star of the
yeah,
show.
she is a star.
Hmm.
She's my angel.
I
But
love
yeah,
her.
she may make additional appearances before this episode ends. But she's here. She's on my leg. She sits on my like my leg like a little gargoyle because I sit in a gay way
I'm
where
sitting in a gay way as well.
like one leg is just like swinging off one side of the chair and then the other one is like I don't even know.
My
It's
knee
not
is literally right here.
yeah, it's all bent. Yeah.
Yeah,
She's my gargoyle.
I love it.
Okay. Last card is the three of rings, which is pentacles reversed. Okay. We talked about a lot of changes, like leaving things behind, making some empowered, value based decisions, all of that good stuff. And when you're making those moves to align with your goals and intentions, it's natural and normal that you are going to notice some or a lot of friction and conflict in other areas in your life because you're operating a certain way. All the people and structures and conditions around you are used to that. And once you start changing, it's going to disrupt the relationships you have, these the jobs that you're in, the projects that you have, the structures and the cycles around you. Because again, they depend on you to act a certain way and they expect that of you. Um, so as you are, moving through that, it's going to be pretty apparent on like what becomes disharmonious. Is that a word? I think so. So as that comes up, this is the time to reflect and decide on whether you're able to evolve and change in a harmonious way together, or whether you've just outgrown each other, the situation, the conditions. And that's going to be hard. And I really I want to say make space for that, but like I too have taken the lyrics of Defying Gravity
Held space
and
with that.
held space with
You're
that.
technically in queer media. This is
Yes,
queer media.
this is queer
This is
media.
queer media.
Oh my God. Yes, this is queer media. But yeah, I think all of the things that we've talked about over this past year, where it's like, make a decision, like, if you have to end something, end it, like, stop trying to sweep it under the rug. If you have continued to move forward with whatever that thing is, I'm sure you have come to find that it is really unsustainable and that it is weighing on you in a really new way that it's just not working. Um, and not for lack of trying, not for lack of like wanting it to work out, but these are the things I don't want to say that are holding you back from, you know, creating this life, making these changes, but it does cause some sort of roadblock or barrier. Um, yeah. So I invite you to take a look and to really be honest. Yeah. With yourself and with each other. And like this could be anything, honestly. Like, sure, it could be a relationship, but it could also be a job. It could be boundaries that you are setting or not setting. Like, it could be so many different things that need to change and are changing as you change. So, yeah. Shroot, what does the astro say?
Ooh, it's a big one. We have a big transit happening in January, and it's a transit that happens every like year and a half or so. But what's especially exciting about it this time is it is starting a new cycle in the astrological cycle. So it is the North Node in the sky is moving from Aries into Pisces, and the nodes in astrology are basically representative of the poles of the moon. So they are not real planets in the sky, they are mathematical points. And the North Node and the South Node have to do with, there are different interpretations depending on which lineage and which branch of astrology you practice under, what your cultural kind of like induction into these things are. And I have so much discourse that could be said on the nodes, but I'm a modern tropical astrologer, and I use the nodes as a like the North Node is our unfamiliar destiny that we feel called to move toward, and our South Node is like a pre-existing pattern that we've either inherited from up our ancestral lineage or up through our past lives, or it is very entrenched in this lifetime, depending on what your beliefs are and all that stuff. I'm definitely respectful and inclusive of whatever your beliefs are, but those are the things that the South Node encompasses. So it's a pre-existing entrenched pattern and level of experience that we have. With whatever the North Node is doing. So the nodes are shifting from Aries, the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Libra, into the North Node in Pisces, the South Node in Virgo. And typically, most of, like, not most, all the planets move forward from Aries, they cycle all the way through, and then Pisces is where they finish. But the nodes, because they're mathematical points, because they're poles of the moon, they actually move backwards in our chart as time goes on. So they are constantly retrograde. And so that means that the cycle begins at Pisces and it ends in Aries. And I kind of love that because the nodes are so much more like meta. They're so much more around destiny. They're so much more kind of like fate oriented. They're called the nodes of fate, right? So it's like they're very like woo meta spiritual as a concept, and so I kind of love that they move backwards compared to everything else, and that if Aries is like the baby of the zodiac and Pisces is like the elder ancestor of the zodiac, I kind of love that the nodes move backwards, and that the bait like it's kind of like as above, so below. It's kind of like just as much as the forward cycle is true, the reverse cycle is also true. And I think that's reflective of, what we were saying, Stevie was bringing up earlier about like, we're so familiar with the Northern Hemisphere, we don't really have any exposure to what this same, chart type stuff, winter solstice, like what is that like in the Southern Hemisphere? I think it's the same concept being echoed here, which is that like, birth and death are cycles and from our positionality they look like they move forward, but like let's say from the ether, if we're a spirit or we're becoming an ancestor that isn't a human being anymore, like the birth and death cycle is backwards to us. And so I just love that. There's so much that could be said about all that, but that new cycle is beginning on January 11th, where the North Node moves into Pisces. And so this idea that like you have to kind of like make a decision, break something off, allow conflict to light the way forward, that is kind of like really at the core of what the last degrees, or in this case, the first degrees of Aries energy is all about. So it's kind of like in order to cross the threshold into your new beginning, you need to like forcefully get there. You need to get there with decisiveness, and you need to take action to get there. And I love that that's coinciding with this Mars retrograde because Mars is the planet about taking action. So it's like this isn't necessarily like changing your job or moving house or whatever. It's more of like an internal action. And it's more of like let the internal like make the decision internally and let your internal like decision making be the thing that guides your actions that you make externally. So it's like, I'm no longer going to let myself be mistreated by people in my life. If that winds up with you leaving your job, like it wasn't like the decision was leave your job. It was the decision was I'm no longer allowing myself to be mistreated, and that means I have to leave this space. So it's kind of like allow your inner actions, your inner decisions about yourself to then lead your way forward into this new version of your life. And so I love that that kind of timing all works out because I think like really focus on courage in this period of time and understanding that like courage is something that you can summon. It is not something that you either have it or you don't. It's something you can call in. And courage requires a level of trust and it requires a level of faith that like I can do this. Um, and so really like kind of think about like where do you source your sense of trust from? Where do you source your sense of faith from? And if you're listening to this podcast to a certain extent, you ascribe faith to astrology, to tarot. So, you can use this podcast as a jumping off point to source your courage and to say, hey, Shroot and Stevie told me to be courageous. Shroot and Stevie told me to make a decision and to stand behind it and let that lead me through conflict, through the breaking of things, into my future. And so like, whatever your source of courage is, like really call it in and move through this threshold and embrace this new beginning that this January is offering us, and this opportunity to kind of do things differently, and to kind of take a chance and make a choice and break away, to quote Kelly Clarkson. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of life that awaits you on the other side of this threshold. And so, this North Node in Pisces transit is going to be really a lot of things. It's definitely going to be a lot of things. I'm not downplaying the not so fun parts of it, but it is going to be so expansive and it is going to be so all encompassing when it comes to our senses and our experience of life on Earth. And so, um, really, you won't be able to fully experience everything this transit has to offer you over the next year and a half if you are not willing to cross that threshold. And so really encourage you, first half of January, gotta just nut up and do it. You gotta ovary up and do it. Like just get through the thing that is holding you back. And be open and be curious to find out what lives on the other side of that. So again, when it comes to the North Node, obviously we have the North and South Node where it's located in our own charts, and I talk about that in my life purpose reading. But the North Node in the sky, when it's moving through our chart where it is in the sky, what that means is that we have the opportunity to forge a new relationship to that section of our chart. And it is something that is completely foreign to us. We have no experience with. But I love that because I think it shows like how dynamic life is and how much we have an opportunity to grow as human beings. And out of all of the transits where we have opportunities to grow as human beings, North Node in Pisces is probably like the biggest one. So just like allow yourself space, you know what I mean? You need to basically clear space to like welcome in the expansiveness of this transit. And so in order to clear that space, you need to Aries break through the wall like the Kool-Aid man. Like you just gotta bust through. So bust through and be open is what I'll say. That's where I'll end with.
Period.
Yeah.
Wow. What a journey, y'all. 2024, the year of our Lord.
I love
Wow.
it. I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of you, listener. It was a tough year. It was a very scary year. And, you know, you're still here, you're still kicking it. And, you listening to this podcast is proof that you are, you know, care about yourself. You're supporting yourself and you care about your community. And, that's no small thing, especially in, as I say, every episode, this care shortage we're living in. So, you know, pat yourself on the back. You made it another year.
Beautiful, gorgeous, perfect. Mhm,
Any
mhm.
last thoughts, Stevie?
No thoughts, just a smooth brain.
I need you to take that smooth brain all the way into January. So we
Okay.
are putting ourselves on timeout. But please feel free. We are still open for readings. We are not taking a break from readings because we are a slut for readings. We love it. And we would love to connect with y'all. So if you're interested, this is always a great time of year. I always think like birthdays are a great like reset of like, okay, think about the year ahead. But, the calendar year is also a great reset, especially if you're an earth sign. It's probably the best time of year for you as an earth sign to really be thinking about your priorities. So, you know, I think a joint reading is really valuable because we can help you get your head on straight. What do you need to leave behind? What do you need to carry with you to move forward? Um, it's a really honest and thorough and what's the word? Just like all-encompassing look at what's ahead of you with a joint reading with us, which is called Dance with Datura. Or, reading with us individually, doing tarot or Reiki with Stevie and astrology with me. So, we encourage you to book with us. We encourage you to reach out to us on Instagram at bleedingheartsclub.pod. We would love to come back in the new year and answer a bunch of questions. So please go ahead and send us your questions at bleedingheartsclub.pod@gmail.com, or you could DM us on Instagram. If you include your birth information, that is birth date, time, location, which means city and country or state, we will give you a mini tarot and astro reading to go along with your question. And it'll be done on the podcast. So, yeah, we would love to start the new year with some questions. So, go ahead and send them in. We do encourage you, the podcast won't drop till January 21st, I believe it is. So, if it's a time sensitive question, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. But if you have a more existential, broader question, we encourage you to write in. I know, we've gotten so much feedback from you listeners about the questions that we've answered so far, and it's been really heartwarming and wonderful. So, as much as it's like, oh, I don't want to take up space in the podcast, that seems really selfish. Other people benefit so much from your questions. So it is just as much a community offering as it is a personal one to you if you drop a question in. So we would appreciate it, and I know our community would appreciate it as well. We also would ask you if you could go ahead and leave us a review on, the podcast. I guess it would be the iTunes app. Or Apple Podcasts, or you could rate us on Spotify and iTunes. If you could follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, share, comment. We would love to keep growing the community, and we need your help to do that. So, all of those are ways that you can help us out, and we would love to see where this goes. We really want to get to a place where we are filming in person. We would love to be hosting live events, and we can't really do all those things unless we grow. So, um, thanks a lot. And we wish you the merriest of holidays and the happiest of New Years. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. So you can find all of our socials and links to book with us and links we mentioned in our show notes. And we'll see you next year.
Bye, y'all. Whee!